All right, today we're going to tackle one of history's biggest, most controversial ideas. But we're going to set the politics aside for a minute and really look under the hood at the machine itself, the economic engine of communism. Let's dive in.
So it all really starts with this one incredibly powerful phrase, the ideal, right? A society where everyone pitches in what they can and in return gets whatever they need. It's a vision of perfect equality where the community takes care of everyone. You can absolutely see the appeal.
But that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? How do you take that beautiful sentence and turn it into a working economy for millions and millions of people? Going from the theory to the real world, well, that's where things get complicated.
Okay, so to really get what communism was trying to do, you first have to understand the problem it was designed to solve. At its core, it was an answer to a very specific issue that its founder, Karl Marx, saw in capitalism way back in the 19th century.
Now, the absolute key to all of this, everything, is a concept called the means of production. Just think of it as all the stuff you need to make other stuff. So factories, land, tools, and yeah, in today's world, even things like software. The one question that separates these economic systems is who owns all that? And this table just lays it out plain and simple. On the one hand, under capitalism, private individuals own the means of production, and the whole point is to make a profit. But on the other hand, under communism, the collective, which, let's be real, in practice means the state, owns everything. The goal isn't profit, it's to give the value that's created back to the whole community.
So what is this surplus value problem? Well, this chart here explains it perfectly. Let's say a worker produces $100 worth of value, but they only get paid a $20 wage. Marx argued that the extra $80, that surplus value, is basically taken by the owner as profit. The entire goal of communism was to just get rid of that third bar altogether and give that full value back.
Okay, so if you get rid of private owners, if you get rid of the profit motive, how on earth do you decide what to make? You need a totally new machine to run the economy. And that machine is called a command economy, which is run by something called central planning. And this is how that machine is supposed to work. Instead of the invisible hand of the market, you get a very, very visible one. It all starts at the top. A central committee sets these big national goals. Then a bunch of planners figure out exact production quotas for every single factory. The state then allocates all the resources, all the materials, all the money, and last but not least, every single citizen gets assigned a job to make it all happen. And this system, it leads to a pretty fascinating outcome. Zero unemployment. Officially anyway. The state is the only employer, so they can just give everyone a job. But the side effect, as this quote just perfectly captures, was unbelievable inefficiency. It's something called underemployment. Putting 3 people on a job that really only needs 1, just to make sure everyone's got a paycheck. But, like with any complex machine, when this thing was actually built in the real world, some critical bugs started to show up in the system. And we're not talking about small glitches. These were really fundamental problems that economists have been studying for decades. And the 2 biggest ones, the ones that really gummed up the works, are what economists call the knowledge problem and the incentive gap. First, the knowledge problem. Seriously, how can a small group of planners in a capital city possibly know what millions of different people want and need, like right now? And second, the incentive gap. If you get the same reward no matter what, what's your motivation to work any harder or to come up with a brilliant new idea? This right here, this is the knowledge problem in action. And it can get a little absurd. Central planners, they might hit their quota for 10,000 shovels. Great. But they forgot to specify they need to be right-handed. The result, you get warehouses full of junk nobody can use, while the basic stuff people actually want, like bread or soap, is always running out. This is the exact logic that led to those infamous bread lines. And for the incentive gap? Well, there's this famous, kind of cynical saying from the Soviet era that just nails it. We pretend to work, and they pretend to pay us. When you break that link between how much effort you put in and what you get back, motivation just falls off a cliff. It created this whole culture where doing the absolute bare minimum was the smartest thing you could do, which of course led to the whole system grinding to a halt. So you can see how these deep-seated problems, they were just not sustainable. Eventually the whole thing hit a breaking point. The original model just couldn't compete in the modern world, and that forced a massive, dramatic reboot. And this timeline really shows you that turning point. As the world blasted into the information age, trying to manage a modern economy got way too complex for a handful of central planners. The system just couldn't keep up. While the Soviet Union eventually collapsed under all that pressure, China started down a radically different path way back in 1978. And this is what became known as the China model, or sometimes state capitalism. And what they did was really clever. They basically split the blueprint in two. As you can see, they kept the single-party political control from the old system, but they plugged in a totally different economic engine, one that runs on markets, private business, and yes, the profit motive.
And the results? I mean, they've been absolutely staggering. We're talking one of the most explosive periods of economic growth in all of human history. It's created incredible wealth, but it also led to this profound irony, the return of a massive class divide, which was the very thing the original philosophy was built to destroy.
So, all of this history brings us right up to today, and to the future. Because the same technological forces that broke the old model, they're now raising some really fascinating new questions about whether a different version of it could actually, maybe, work.
I mean, really think about it. The knowledge problem was basically a processing problem, right? A few humans in a room just couldn't track the needs of millions of people in real time. But what if you had an AI that could? Could some super sophisticated algorithm finally crack the code on central planning by perfectly predicting and managing an entire economy? And you know, we even see echoes of these core ideas in our modern debates. Take the concept of universal basic income, or UBI. Now, it's not communism, but it definitely shares a core principle. It's this idea that the insane wealth generated by AI and robots should be shared, collectively, with everyone in society, not just the tiny group of people who happen to own the robots.
And that leaves us with this one last, really provocative thought to chew on. Was communism just a failed experiment from the 20th century? Or was it, maybe, an idea that was just way ahead of its time? A blueprint designed for a world of total automation, a world of post-scarcity, that we are only just now beginning to see on the horizon. It's a question worth thinking about.